Welcome to Pod Me If You Can, I'm David Farrell. Today's film is Spinning into Butter, starring Sarah Jessica Parker and Beau Bridges. And just a heads up, there are going to be some spoilers.
Pardon me if you can. Movie reviews.
Dean Sarah Daniels is the Dean of Students at an upscale Vermont college. Her character has been put in charge of ethnic diversity and become a point of contact for the teachers and students. When an African American student becomes the target of a racist hate crime, with notes, graffiti, and even a noose being hung outside his window, Dean Daniels must investigate. Now I'll start by saying that this film looks fairly cheap. It has a midday movie type quality, a pay TV, a straight to TV kind of element, and they've dressed everything down in the most bland colours possible to kind of make it a timeless piece. What I admired about it was that it deals with racism. To start with, this becomes a very relevant film in today's America. The film basically says that everybody has a level of racism. Some of the teachers at this Vermont college are quite old, and their racism seems to boil a little closer to the surface, but even Sarah Jessica Parker's character has come from a Chicago college and pretty much had racism bubbling under the surface for her. The most prominent male character in the story is an African American reporter who's there to investigate these racist attacks. He'd had a tip-off and it brought him to the college. Now, whereas this could be a love story between Sarah Jessica Parker's Dean and this African American reporter, instead they tend to use them as a sounding board to explain how complex racism is. There are varying levels of white guilt here as well, as Sarah Daniels tells us that when she would get on a tram, she would look for a white person to sit next to, then a black woman, and as a last possible choice, a black man. And it all sounds very racist and terrible. She was teaching African American students, and pretty much she focused on the few that were lazy and the few that were late or slack or had characteristics that she didn't enjoy. The reporter and the dean sit in a room and actually rattle off characteristics that are negative for African Americans and then do the same for white people to kind of highlight the stereotypes that people have. But then, as the reporter says, this is just trading insults, which makes you wonder sort of why it's in the scene. It's very strange to hear the N-word being said. They're careful when they show the graffiti in this film to just show the first three letters of the N-word, and you can kind of get the implication. So as I suppose anyone watching it wouldn't ask their parents, what is that word, in case they weren't ready for it or they repeated it. But in this movie, they do allow Sarah Jessica Parker's character to say it about 3 times.
Jesus Christ, if you keep calling yourself and acting like then why do you get so upset when we think you're
You said that to them.
this close? It was leaving my mouth. I could see it in the air.
Well, it's not my favorite word either.
But I can't say that.
No.
It just makes for uncomfortable viewing, and that can be said of most of this movie. The thing that it does right is Beau Bridges and the other teachers at this Vermont college are all sort of a little racist, but they're never racist in front of anybody but each other. So you kind of get the feeling that, the behind closed doors kind of racism. Beau Bridges' character even refers to her character as the liaison for the minority students, which is something they hadn't explained to her before, but essentially why she was employed with them. The opening of this movie uses an old cartoon called Little Black Sambo, and it's an 8-minute animation that's fairly racist, and it hasn't aged well. The fact that this is laid over the opening titles does not really bode well for the film, though it's making a point, and that's one of the insults used, is that the African American student is referred to as Little Black Sambo. I just think it might cause people to turn off the film before it even begins. They have a forum with the students, and they don't allow the students to say anything, and they don't have any African American speakers or Hispanic speakers. It's like being preached to by just the white teachers about race and about tolerance. when they're not kind of practicing what they preach, and, they're not that inclusive themselves, so it's frustrating. To demonstrate their stupidity, they ask Sarah to solve racism with a 10-point plan, like as if it could be solved in 10 steps. Step 1, acknowledge that you're racist. Step 10, racism is solved, not so simple. Now for the spoilers. If you had any interest in watching Spinning into Butter from 2007, you shouldn't listen to this next part. So the whodunit of the film. The who is being racist, who's going to be uncovered by this reporter. This is the big question that we spend an hour and 20 minutes investigating, pretty much. And it's the most frustrating ending, and it dilutes everything about the film that's come before. The person who was being racist to the African American student was the African American student. So he wrote himself hate notes. He graffitied the N-word on his wall. He even went to the trouble of climbing to the roof and hanging a noose outside of his own window. Now, he didn't have a roommate, so it's plausible, if you will, that he could do all this. But to what end? What is the point? Now, they explain it away by sort of implying that he felt like they were racists, and the way that he was doing those things was to show that they were racists. So it's like if, pretty much, let's start this way. If I was punching myself in the face, and just take it away from race for a minute. If I'm punching myself in the face, and I say, somebody's punching me in the face, and I accuse somebody of punching me in the face, and everyone says, we'll investigate who it is that's punching you in the face and causing you this harm, and then it is yourself. They'll say, well, you're to blame, you're punching yourself in the face, which I think is how this should be interpreted. But the way that they try and spin it in the film is that he was trying to show that there is race problems out there, that people are racist, and that if he did this, he would highlight the people then escalated the situation, which happens a little bit. But it's like accusing someone of something before they've done it, which really undermines everything the film was trying to do, because all they had to do was have one of the teachers being racist or one of the students being racist and either learn a lesson or identify the problem, and then it's your kind of midday movie, everybody's happy at the end situation. We took away the racist person, and now racism has been solved, and, harmony in the campus. But they don't do that. They do this twist that it just takes away from everything you've watched, and it leaves you shrugging your shoulders and saying, okay, why was that guy punching himself, It's been badly handled. You get a very diluted message. Sarah Jessica Parker's acting is very average. It's a paycheck movie, basically. It doesn't feel like... maybe she took the film because she wanted to say the N-word. I've got no idea. Beau Bridges is barely in it. He does one speech that explains this terrible title, Spinning into Butter, which is not memorable. And I found it a real frustrating film to get through, just because of how it trips at the end. It just loses you. And, not worth watching, I'm afraid.
Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Check out our podcast at www.podmeifyoucan.com.